Hello everyone, this is Maja bin Barosh from Pakistan and you're watching my YouTube channel Insani Ittihad, which aims to invoke a little bit of humanity in all of us through awareness and understanding. So today is Purim and I would like to wish Chag Sameach to everyone who is celebrating Purim today. And since Purim is a festival remembering a courageous and heroic Queen Esther, I was actually missing my mother, who is to me a lot like Queen Esther, who saved her people, and our mother actually saved us, the three siblings and the four siblings that we are. She has been to us this savior in regards to the difficulties of the life that we faced as we were growing up. So I would like to share her story, actually her marital story. So I had discussed with my two youngest siblings in regards to sharing this story, and both of them disagreed to share her private life. The reason being, my mother was actually very private in her life, and she hated the fact that if we used to whine about our life's difficulties and problems, and she used to say that our tears and our difficulties are only for us to make us strong and make us this resilient and bring this fighter inside of us to do better in life. So rather than sharing your difficulties and whining about our hard times, it's rather better to discuss our successes and our happiness and our good times. But I thought that no, the kind of life values that my mother taught us should be out there as an inspiration to other women, especially because my mother, she's, if I can say that what kind of of woman and mother she was, I would say one thing which was very eminent in her was her sheer loyalty towards my father, towards us as mother, towards my father as a wife. She literally built this marriage and built this home and built this life. She was not the one who would just give up like that. She was standing with my father throughout his life. When his own family left him, his first wife, who was his first cousin and was married in exchange of his sister, who was married to her brother, even she abandoned my father. My father's family, his brothers, his our step brothers, and his sons and his brothers, my father's brothers, they abandoned him. But my mother was there through all thick and thin, and she literally, on her own, she worked out this marriage despite all the difficulties. So I'm not going to talk very detailed and very long, but I would like to share a few things in regards to how she sort of inspired us. First and foremost, I remember this one night. So my father died on 24th of December, and on 25th of December there is Christmas. So my mother is a convert from Christianity after marrying my father, and she, even after converting to Islam, she used to have a festive meal and a Christmas cake every Christmas. And she used to say, Isa alayhi salam is also a prophet in Islam, so why can't we celebrate his birthday? So we used to do that, and my uncles and all the Muslim people hated that anyway. So she used to make that. So on one fine night, that is the night between 24th and 25th, was a very difficult night for her, because my father's death anniversary on 24th, and then the next day it is Christmas. So on one night, I think it was in 2011, yeah, 11 or 10, I don't exactly remember because it was a long time. So we were discussing, and we were having tea after dinner, and we were just, it was three of us, three sisters and my mother. We were lying in beds and it was very cold. And we were having tea, and my mother said, I can't understand how people get married and divorce. And I said, Mom, you're from olden times, and people were, I mean, it was a taboo taking a divorce back then. But now, I mean, people have changed. They don't, if they don't get along, they just don't stick, and then they get divorced. And she said, but think about it before getting married. Why can't people make why? I mean, and then I remember I said people make mistakes, and she said to me, you think marriage is a mistake? Oh, and she said it all this conversation was in Punjabi, and she used to make this gesture and say, oh, this, you think marriage is a mistake? I mean, I said, no, marrying the wrong person is a mistake, but why do you make that mistake in the first place? If you feel that that person is not deserving of marriage, why do you get married to that person once? Anyway, I mean, if you don't find that person suitable enough, so think your thinking over before your marriage, but once you're married, there is no divorce. So she is the most anti-divorce person in the whole planet as far as I know. So she never believed in this concept, and I think that was the biggest thing that she had in her life. Although my father and my mother had an age difference of 23 years, but my mother, she was just so madly in love with my father, despite all his shortcomings. He was old, and he was constantly reminded by his family, especially his brothers and sister-in-laws, that you have this young beautiful wife and she will take all your money and leave you. And especially when my mother was having a hard time conceiving. I was born after ninth year of our marriage. For 8 years she was unable to conceive. She had, I think, one or two miscarriages. And I remember my aunt, who is married to my father's youngest brother. So my aunt used to say, why are you still with this man after 3-4 years of their marriage? They say, why are you with this old man? He can't even give you children, and just because he's rich, that's why you have married. And my father was highly educated, and he was a bureaucrat, and he was very influential and powerful and had money, so significant money, at least at the time when my mother was married to him. So my aunt actually married my uncle first, and then my mother used to visit her eldest, and she's the eldest sister of my mother, and my mother is younger, not the youngest, but younger than my aunt. And my aunt used to say, why are you married to this old man? You'll never be able to conceive children because of the age difference and all that. And if you want to, you marry him for his money, the money won't go also. Just leave him and find another suitable person who can give you life. I mean, who could be rich. And she actually asked my grandmother also to find for my mother a rich husband. And my grandmother actually found one. So he was 10 years older than my mother, but rich and a widower. And my mother used to tell my mother used to tell us that your grandmother brought me this proposal and said that, and that was after 3-4 years of my mother and father's marriage. And my grandmother said to my mother that, you see, you are unable to conceive, you won't be able to have children, leave this old man, and here is this rich man who's a little less older than you, and you will be able to have children with him and happiness and everything. And he's not even married. He doesn't even, my father had grown up children. Actually, my eldest stepbrother and eldest stepsister's children are older than us. So yeah. So anyway, my mother actually replied to her mother that, no, I didn't marry him for his money, and I married him for him. If Hashem, Allah, wants me to have children, he will give me children with him. And even if I don't have children with him, I will not leave him. And she stuck with my father up till 8 years, and on the 9th year I was born, and then my other siblings were born. But this never went. I mean, my aunt, maybe she was pressured by my stepmother and her family and my step siblings that, ask your sister to leave our father. Maybe that was the pressure, but God knows. But my aunts, in fact, my other aunts also, my mother's other sisters also, and my father's brothers, they kept on insisting my mother that take his money, even take his money and leave, just leave him. And they always thought that my mother married him because she is a greedy woman, one of those honey trappers who marry older men for money. So there had been a time when my father got retired, we didn't have money. My father used all his savings and stuff to build the home that my mother always wanted in the city. She said that she was unable to complete her education, but she wanted a home in a city, and she could not live in the village that my father was from. And she said that I will live in a big city and make sure that my daughters especially get their education, and my children have a good education and good life in there. They turn up to be good. So my father did build her this home. And I remember after my father got retired and he was very sick, and we had financial issues, we didn't have money, so we didn't even have money to pay for the electricity and gas, and therefore there was no electricity and gas in our big house that we have. And we had only pension, my father's pension, and there was some other from the agricultural land that we have, so we had a little bit of income from that. But we had serious financial issues. We were unable to pay for our fees. We didn't had food at times. I remember this one time when we just didn't had food, like there was this little food scarcity in our home. We had just flour, so my mother made chapatis, and we had onions and tomatoes. So my mother made an onion and tomato chutney, and we ate it with the chapatis. And I think that was the thing. This whole thing went on for like about a week or so. And then my mother used to make those pickles and used to make us those parathas, and we used to have parathas and pickles. And we had some serious financial issues. And even then, my aunts and uncles used to leave him and sell this home. And my mother used to say, this man has built this dream house for me. And now that he doesn't have money, I just sell this home, sell this dream house, and just leave him. I can't do that. So, and then my father kept on going worse. He was so much in pressure that his family, his brothers, his cousins, everyone used to say, you have a beautiful life, you have a beautiful wife, and she will leave you for money. The guy got so pressured that he lost his mind. And then literally when my father refused to listen, that I will not divorce my wife, I don't care if she is beautiful and she will leave me for another man, or she will take all the money and leave me, I would just not let her go. So all my uncles and his relative, my father's relative, abandoned and excommunicated my father. So we used to go to our village for Eid. They would give us cold shoulders and will not give us this warmth of family and all that, just because my father refused to divorce my mother. And they were also pissed off in the sense that my mother was a convert from Christianity, but she was not an ordinary convert. You see, my aunt was also a convert from Christianity, but she used to worship her husband. Her husband would say, stand up, she would stand up. Her husband would say, do this, she would do that. She literally worshipped my uncle, and in fact my aunt, otherwise in Islamic concept also, she used to worship Quran, she used to worship Muhammad, she used to worship every concept of Islam. My mother had a different understanding of Islam. she was the sort of thing that she would, have, one of those Jewish people who do this chavruta of, reading Quran and then making. And my mother used to make analogies and, say, you see, in Bible this is written like this, it's same in the Quran, so it's all the same thing. So we used to celebrate Christmas, and she was like, it's Isa alayhi salam's birthday, we're not celebrating Christmas. So she was in that. And I once asked her, Mom, why did you, my father and his family is not deserving of a person like you. Why did you marry this Muslim guy, and why did you convert it? And why did you abandon Jesus and Christianity in a very dramatic way? And my mother said, I didn't abandon Jesus or Christianity. I just accepted Islam also. So I am a Christian and a Muslim also. So don't think that I would abandoned Jesus and and abandoned, Christianity. So it's like that. So my mother was like, a different kind of Muslims. I think that's why my father's family never accepted her thing. She used to say that I'm your father's wife, I'm his best friend, I'm gonna stand with him through everything. But she didn't worship my father. My aunt, the difference between my aunt and my mother was that my mother was a good wife, a loyal wife, a sincere and honest wife, and not just a wife, but a best friend, a partner, someone who brings the best in a partner. And she actually did. It was his brothers, my father's brothers, and his family that just poisoned him so much. Like, that Babylonian king who was, so insecure, and he even got jealous of Esther and Haman when, Esther invited Haman to a private party along with her husband. So I kind of, I thought that this is the best time. Purim is the best time to, share the story and the insight of how great my mother was. So my father actually got sick, and he just literally lost his mind through this pressure of that, your beautiful wife will leave you. And then the excommunication, and my mother was like, I'm not leaving him at any cost. And the difference between my mom and my aunts, both were sisters and both converted from Christianity, is that my mother was a good, honest, loyal wife. My aunt was a worshipping wife who used to worship her husband, worship her husband's family, worship her husband's culture, worship her husband's religion. And she was this worshipping wife. So my mother was she used to say that this is not marriage where your husband doesn't listen to you and you don't. It's not like that. But anyway, my aunt and her children were very much accepted in our family, but we were seen as the rebellious ones because my mother wanted to live in city, to educate his daughters, and have this modern sort of a system where she would and she would be able to celebrate the Christian holidays as well. So anyway, then when my father got mentally sick also, all his family abandoned him. They stopped seeing us and visiting us. We had financial crisis. And even then the family would say, sell this house and go. Take the money and go. And my mother used to say, how can I sell this house which my husband has built for me with so much of love and care? And she arranged. I remember we didn't used to have fees for our school. We didn't used to have food. She would never give up. And once my mother asked this aunt of mine, who is married to my uncle of my father's side, she asked for money to pay our fees. And my aunt said that I don't have enough money, so here's what I can help you with, but I suggest you sell this home and then go to a small place and live. I mean, that was in her. If see in her perspective, she was giving good advice. But for my mother unconditionally loved my father, although they were 23 years apart, and my father was a bit of a insecure man who never fully trusted my mother, out of his own insecurities, and of course his brothers sort of giving him wrong ideas. But my mother was very emotional about my father, that he built this home for me and I cannot sell this, so I will arrange from other means. Anyway, we started renting our home, half of our portion, and then she wanted to work with our agricultural land. Then in that we had a lot of issues, because there were people who kind of who took over our land, and they refused to leave, and they had this forged papers that this man has, and this man has sold this land to us. And my father, because he had Alzheimer and he had dementia, so people would just come to him and have those papers and get him signed. So she had to prove in the court of law that my father is unwell, and this sale deed is not actually valid. And it was very, very difficult going, a woman who has never been allowed to go outside the home or to work or have these financial responsibility. My father sort of, when he was working and he was okay, not sick, he protected my mother and provided everything to her and didn't allow her to leave the house. And all of a sudden my father gets sick, and he is unable to provide for us financially, and he's dependent on us. She is now going out. She is handling property issues, rent issues, and then giving the land for tenancy and stuff. So she managed this whole thing slowly and gradually. Meanwhile, we had issues with our food. We didn't have electricity and gas because we didn't have money to pay for the bills, and it was tough. It was all tough. And my mother used to just say to me that, Majabine, whatever come may what be, nothing can break us. Nothing can break our hope, and nothing can break our spirits. We will live in this house and we will manage. I remember she sold all her gold that my father had bought her, and there was this pendant that she had. It was a long necklace, and it had a huge pendant, and it was a wedding gift from my father to my mother. And I remember we had to sell her because she had to pay for my brother's admission fee, and also to the lawyer for the case that we were fighting for our agricultural land. And she was literally in tears, selling that selling that necklace. And I asked her, Ammi, why are you crying? And if this is very, very important for, I mean, this, if you like this necklace, I thought she just liked that necklace. It's a gold necklace, and she liked. And then she said that no, it's the gift that your father has given me for our marriage, for our wedding, on our wedding day. So, but it was very difficult for her, and she did sell that necklace, and we had to pay for the fee of my brother. And then and I remember my brother was there too, and he was crying, and he said that when I grow up I'll get you a bigger necklace. So yeah, anyway, so so my father was bedridden, and he was crazy. And I remember once my father got out of the house and he got lost, And my brother came from school, and my mother was like, your father has gone out and he's not coming. I don't know. I was cooking and cleaning, and he just went. And then there were some, we rented our half portion of our house to an office, and she was asking the people, and they said we didn't saw. He probably went in the morning or in when we were busy. Anyway, Baruch Hashem, as my brother's friend saw my father walking on a street far away from our home, in fact, far away from our neighborhood. He brought him back to our home, and my brother, who was a teenager, was highly ashamed of this incident that, my father was lost and he is out of place, and my friends have brought him home. And then at that moment, my brother and we, all our siblings, we said, Mom, it's enough. He has dementia, he has Alzheimer, he is a security risk. You need to get him to a mental asylum. And my mother said, okay, fine, I'll see, and I see what I can do. So the next morning she goes to this hospital, which is very nearby. By the way, ironically, it's very nearby our neighborhood. So she goes and she finds out what are the formalities, what can we do we have to pay the fees or whatever. She goes and visits, and then she comes back, and it's like afternoon. We came from school, and all my siblings actually went to sleep, because then we had to wait for our Maulvi Sahib to read the Sipara, the Quranic lessons. At I think at 5 we used to have that session, and then we used to do homework and play and blah blah blah. So yeah, right after school, having our lunch, we used to go take a nap, afternoon nap. So all my siblings were sleeping, and my father, actually when my mother was away, so I gave food to everyone and I fed my father and put him to sleep. And then my mother comes in, and she is sitting on the bed rubbing my father's hands, and said, and sobbing, literally. I was about to, I washed the dishes of lunch, and then I said I was waiting for my mother to come and then sleep. And my mother comes, and she's sitting right next to my father, who is sleeping, and she's sobbing and crying like. And I went into the room and I said, Ammi, why are you crying, and what happened? When are we sending Baba to the hospital? I mean, it's good for her. And I'm like convincing her, Mom, it's good for her. They will take care of her. We're busy. We go to school. You have a lot of work and chores to do at home and take care of so many things. We are unable to take care of Baba, and it's good that he goes to this hospital and he will be taken care of. And my mother, sobbing, crying, and saying to me, they put them in chains. They put them in chains, Madeline. How can I let your father stay in that place? In tears, she said, no matter how difficult that this is, and now no matter how hard it is, your father is going to stay in the house that he has built for us and for me. Until I'm alive, I'm not sending your father to any mental asylum or anything. The guy has dementia and Alzheimer. And God knows how me, my other siblings, literally my mother and my brother used to feed, bathe, take care of his toilet needs and everything. And I used to wonder, a man who can't provide for this woman's financial needs, physical needs, or sexual needs, or anything, but that woman loved his